Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 218 of the Sophie Art Podcast, which is a little podcast that I do about the art and things with my co-host lilDENNiS. And lilDENNiS is here, and he's so excited because we've got an interview today with a beautiful person called Aydian Dowling. We really think you're going to enjoy this. So before we get into it, here's a little bit about Aydian. Now, Aydian Dowling is actually a bit of a superstar. He's a transgender activist and influencer for over 12 years. Featured on the Ellen Degeneres show and the first transgender man to be on the cover of Men's Health, Aydian has committed his life to focusing on the positivity in the lives of transgender and non-binary folks. Aydian is also the co-founder of Point of Pride, the largest 100% volunteer non-profit, generating over 400k in aid for trans folks worldwide. With his new app, Trace, Aydian hopes to make trans and non-binary folks feel safe to not just share their transition, but to also celebrate their journeys. You can find out more about Trace on their official website, thetrace.app. You can also find Aydian's personal website at aydiandowling.com, which is AYDIANDOWLING.com. I'll put links and everything in the show notes, and also you can see this one as a video if you want on YouTube, and I'll put links and everything in the description. But lilDENNiS is so excited for this one. Time for kitty kisses, which means let's get into this one. lilDENNiS is going to get us in for an interview with Aydian Dowling. Can you hear me, Aydian?
I can hear you. The question is, can you hear me?
Yes. I'm not sure if my... Oh, here we go. Huh. That's it.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, all good. Huh. Oh. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Huh.
What time is it where you're at?
It's 9 o'clock at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about yourself?
Not crazy late. It's 4.
In the afternoon?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Huh. That's cool.
Cool.
I want to say thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. I know it was kind of like a out of the blue kind of email from Eli, but I look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Huh. It'd be nice. So should we just jump straight in, or?
Yeah, however you like to do it.
Oh, cool. What I was gonna do was, if it's right, is like a little bit about your story, and then go into the Trace app, if that's alright.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
So, like, can you just tell us a little bit about your story, if that's alright?
Yeah. So, So, my story. Okay. I'm sure you can relate to being like, wow, how do you sum up a whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think for me, I guess like when I was, I'll jump in a fast forwarding sense. So like when I was younger, I, always like coined like a tomboy. That's how people identified me. And then once I turned about like 12 or 13, I noticed that I started to like girls. And that was different for me because I was biologically born a female. And so, at like 13, I kind of knew I was a lesbian, but I didn't actually come out to my family and my friends and stuff till I was about 16. And I always I never really thought about gender because it wasn't quite an option, so to speak. So like I graduated high school in 2005, and I was born in 1987. So it's not like there weren't trans people around. They just, they weren't talked about in media. I was just like, a white girl in Long Island, New York. Like I didn't have access to many different, identities outside of just like lesbian, gay, bisexual. That's really kind of all that was talked about at that time when I was growing up, like in the 90s, the early 2000s. And so, I was just like, I'm a girl. I like other girls, so that means I'm a lesbian, And when I came into that identity, I felt really comfortable because I was meeting other lesbians who like self-identified as butch or as dykes, and they would dress very masculine. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's how I like to dress. I feel like I can relate to these people. And I felt like a sense of community. And then when I hit about 19, 20, I just started noticing that it was more than just like a sexual identity and more than just like clothes I like to wear. It became more prevalent after high school that like, no, like I actually feel like I am one of these guys, right? Like I feel like I am a guy, and it was hard to know what that meant or what it was supposed to look like because, as I was saying, I just didn't have much access to transgender men or transgender women. And so I did find a small community on Long Island, and there was like myself, one of my best friends, shout out to DJ, he's a trans man, and then one other trans guy in this group of like 9 or 10 trans people, and everyone else was trans women, and they were mostly older trans women. So we got a lot of guidance from them, which was really great. And I just started transitioning when I was 21, and I started medically transitioning. I came out to my family, and that's really where my activism started to take place, because I started documenting my transition from 2009 all the way. I mean, I still in some ways document my transition today, but that's kind of how I got into the community. I started making friends online, on YouTube, and then on Facebook, and then went to Instagram, and now across all social channels. And that's like where I just kind of fell in love with the community, and I started a nonprofit with my friend Jeff, who's the co-founder, and ever since about 2014, 2015, I've really dedicated my life to just being another voice in the community and an outspoken voice outside of our community. And I think the community made me feel like I had a place to be, like a home. And that was always just really, I think it saved my life in a lot of ways. And that's where my dedication to our community really comes from.
Yeah, it's beautiful because you're actually, with the Trace app, you're really giving back, aren't you? You're going to be helping other people going through what we were going through. It's beautiful, really.
Thanks. Yeah. It's like, I think I'm sure just with when we think about art and other expressions, it's it's not always a smooth ride, and sometimes you work on a piece forever and it doesn't get any of the recognition of the time. But I think I see the Trace app as all of my works over the last 12-ish years kind of coming together into this one thing that I feel like is a full expression of our community, and then trying to make that the branches on a tree, everyone has their own version, right, of themselves, and being able to all come back to the same roots of support and community, and that you're not alone in this journey,
I think that's one of the main things that you're going to do with the app is help people not feel alone, because that was one of the main things I struggled with right at the start. Because there's a stat on your website. It says about, I think it was 10% of people know somebody who's transgender or non-binary. And what I thought was weird, because like when I started telling people, it was amazing how many people said they already knew someone. And because like before that, I always thought I was like the only one. Which is, so like with this app, I think you will actually help people realise they're not alone. So that's like one of the key things, I think.
It's
beautiful.
Yeah.
But I've got so many questions, but I feel like it's amazing. Well, one little one I'm quite curious about is how did you actually pick your name?
The name Trace?
Like Aydian.
Oh, my name
Yeah.
Aydian. Yeah. So I chose my name because, like, very ironically, when I was young and I was like an artist, photographer, I was in the arts. I did a lot of writing also. And I would sign my initials. And my initials were AED. And I don't know why I didn't just sign my name, but I just always would sign my initials. And so, I don't know, I didn't feel a connection to my birth name, but I felt a connection to the letters because that's what I always sign things in. So when I picked my name, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep my last name, which is Dowling, because, I know some people don't feel connected, but I didn't feel any, I felt okay with my last name, right? And I wanted to choose my first name and my middle name to start with the same initials. So my first name wanted to start with an A, and my middle name I wanted to start with an E. So I would have all of my same initials.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so Aydian was like an up and coming name. Like I know a lot of people are named it now, but it was kind of like not as popular. And I picked this spelling because I don't know. This is what Google told me in 2009. I don't know if it's a true fact, but I read that the spelling, how I spell it, which is Aydian, is a gender-neutral spelling. So, like, if you were to have a girl, because you could name a girl Aydian, this is quote-unquote how you would spell it for either a boy or a girl. And I just felt like that, like, I was like, oh, cool, that's me. You know what I mean?
Cool. Oh, that's nice. So do you still do, like, your art or at all?
What'd you say?
Do you still do, like, your art? You said you do, like, art.
Yeah, I still do some like writing, some poetry. It's interesting because like I think my perfectionism got the best of me as I got older with my art, and I just I'll still like doodle every now and then, like line drawings. I'm really into just like black and white line drawings. But I wish I did more. But I have a deep respect for it. I have like a lot of art in my office and stuff. But I don't do as much as I wish I did.
Well, did it help you though? Like, did it help you sort of start to transition at all, or is it not related? Do you think it's related at all?
That's a good question. I think early in my transition, I still was doing a lot of writing and a lot of drawing. Then I think as I got older, I early in my transition, I was going to college, and I didn't actually finish college, but I went for pastry arts, and I started making cakes. And I think that's kind of where my art shifted from drawing and writing to like making a beautiful cake that was like, because we would like sometimes we'd paint on a cake or we'd like pipe on the cake. So I think I haven't thought of it like that though, but maybe that's where the transition from like on paper turned into cake.
That's cool. Now it's turned into an app. Huh.
Yeah, now it's turning into
That's mad. Oh. Can you tell us a little bit about the Trace app?
Yeah. So, well, ironically, when I thought you said, how did you get your name for Trace? So Trace is an acronym just like our lovely LGBTQAI plus acronym. So TRACE stands for Transition Recording and Community Engagement. And so TRACE is an app for trans and non-binary folks to track their transition, whether that be medically or just celebratory moments in your transition, and to also then share it with a community of allies. So it's a tracking app mixed with kind of like we're deeming it a safe social media for trans, non-binary, and our allies. So a place that if you post something, or, if I was to post a photo of me shirtless with my top surgery or not top surgery, it's not going to get taken down like it would on Instagram. You're not going to have people wondering, like, what are those scars? Or, like, what'd you do to your body, right? Because we're trying to cultivate a community of support and allyship, and even people who might be new allies, having them opportunities to learn from the community without having to put the community, like, at risk of feeling used for their resources.
Definitely. That's cool. Because like, one of the things for me is, like, as I've transitioned, I've realised it's, because I thought it was going to be all about the body, but I've realised it's so much about the mind. So I was wondering if you was going to have, like, maybe stuff like maybe like meditations or anything like that, things that could help with the mind.
Yeah, it's a really great point, because there's so many things that happen in transition. Yes, for many of us there's like the physical, medical, body stuff, but I think you bring up a great point, which is like the integration of those body changes into our everyday life, right? And so the Trace app, which is released in June, and so we're going to be growing, right? So right now we have many features, and we have visions for so many more amazing features. And one of those features is going to be like a journaling notebook type thing. So one thing we do have right now is an HRT reminder. And our hope with that is that's like kind of the first implementation. The next step is going to be able to like write notes when you've completed a shot. So you can say if you were feeling anxious, if you were feeling really good, if you had a down week or a really great week, and just kind of being able to notice any trends within, when you take your HRT, to maybe combat something that might be going on, like maybe you're having low dips or super high. Maybe you just being able to kind of look at the picture from a bird's eye view, and see trends, whether they're good trends or bad trends. And then we also want to have like a separate section that would be just like a journaling, right? Just like what's going on, right? So let's say you have an anniversary, and then being able to be like, hey, yesterday was your 2-year on HRT anniversary. Like, do you want to write a little something about it in like your personal journal? And just kind of having some prompts to allow people space and outside of the space, but like the option to think about it, right? I think sometimes like life goes by so quick, and you wake up and you're like, oh wow, like everything in my life has changed, and I haven't really taken any moments to like think about it, Yeah,
because it's amazing as you're writing. Sometimes when you go back and reread it, it's almost like that helps you just as much as writing it at the time. It's amazing how. Will you be able to like share these diary things, or will it be sort of personal?
Yeah, so what we want to create and what we're working on creating, and right now what we have is the option to share whatever you want, but to also not share whatever you don't want, right? So if you want to share you have an anniversary, cool, you can share that with all your allies, and everyone will know, and they'll be able to like support you and wish you congrats. if you want to have like what we're saying, right? Like in the future when we have like journaling, if you want to have a journal entry that was really meaningful for you, or maybe you want to share your last year's journal entry this year to show how far you've come or what you've overcome, right? Like you'd have an option to do that, right? But it would only be if you wanted to share that. We understand that having privacy is really important, and having support is really important, right? So being able to balance the support when you need it and the privacy when you need it is a really big goal of ours.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds brilliant. That sounds really cool. Well, one of the things here I've put is about, because I noticed there's like, I'd accept myself and then I'd hit like denial, and I would just like want to basically get rid of everything. I don't know if you went through this as well, but I was thinking like with the app, because I could imagine if I hit one of these denial phases, I might say like sort of want to delete everything. So I was wondering if you'd have like an option to maybe hide your profile if you hit one of those phases.
Yeah. So right now we have an option where you can be completely hidden, and that's just a toggle. So you could be open if you want, or you can be completely private if you want. And again, I think that, like you were saying, like sometimes you want to connect, and other times you feel like your connections are at maxed out and you need some space, you know what I mean? So it's as easy as, just hiding your profile or opening up your profile. I will say, if you and I are on the app and we become allies, right? And so when we use the word allies at Trace, we're really just saying friends. But it's a space to support each other. So we use the word ally because, just because we're both trans, that doesn't mean we also can't be an ally to one another, right? And so if you and I have a connection because you are public, right? And then you're feeling like you would like to go private, our connection would still be there. So I would just want that to be clear, right? So everyone you're already friends with would remain friends, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to get new friends because you would have made your profile private. And so, hopefully that would be appropriate, you know what I mean, to get the support from the people you trust already without having to have all of your stuff out there. And similar to like other social medias, they'll also be like kind of, like on Instagram, how you can be public a little bit because you can have your profile like, be public, but not all of your photos. And I'd have to like request to be your friend. We also have that option too, right? So right now, that's kind of how everyone is. Like, I can't see your profile, your feed, but I can see your profile, and I can request to be your friend. In my request, I can write, "Hey, Sophie, I love your podcast, and I saw you on Trace, so I wanted to connect." And then you would get that notification that's like, "Hey, Aydian wants to be your ally, and this is what he said," right? And it would say whatever I wrote, and then you would have the option to decide if you want to accept or deny, our connection.
That's cool. Yeah, because like the amount of times I'd delete everything and you'd have to start all again and build up all like your friends or something. So I think that'd be cool. I was thinking, because you said like about allies, but let's say like my mum wanted to, because when I told my mum in 2004, I know she said as well she wished she had somebody to talk to. So would like mums or something be able to communicate with each other as well?
No, I mean, I love what you're saying, Sophie, because that's the whole reason we have allies on, is because for a transitioning person and all of their friends and family and loved ones, it's not just a transition for us. It's a transition for everyone. And I truly believe that if, I think about, how old were you when you transitioned?
I was about 37 when I started hormones.
Okay, so you were like an adult, right?
Mm.
Right. So I think about, like young people who are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23, people who live, you know, kind of under the reins of their parents still. They're not quite like full grown, and this doesn't disqualify people who are older, but I think a lot about the parents of those trans and non-binary folks, because I really believe that if the parents were able to connect to other parents who are going through the same thing, they wouldn't feel like this is so, out of the box, that this is so wild, and that, they're the only parent going through this and their kid is going to be so alone, right? Because as the non-trans person, you don't really have a community to connect to, because you're a cis, like for the mom, right? Like you're a cis straight mom. Like you can't go into all trans spaces. Like there's really no real place for allies who are directly connected to trans folks. And so I would love for like an exact example with you where like your mom was like, I wish I had someone else to talk to, because I don't even know what to do with the information you're giving me, right? And if she could have gone onto the Trace app and been able to connect to other moms who are either at the same stage she's at, a more advanced stage, so maybe their kid is already medically transitioned, or maybe their kid has been out for 10 years or something, she would be able to, within the app, build her own support community, right? Her own group of allies. And then she would not feel like so alone, which I think directly will impact that trans person in like, their trans child, because they will know that, hey, if I can find a community, my kid's going to find a community. So how can we do this kind of like more together instead of so separate, right? And I think, the big vision of that is to literally save kids from homelessness, from being kicked out, right? Like to save kids from feeling any type of like negative suicidal thoughts because they don't think their parents don't support them. I think everybody who's connected to that trans person needs some type of support. And so if we can offer that through Trace in a safe way for everybody, everyone gets to be safe. I think that is going to have a huge impact on our community.
Yeah, I would even say maybe that would be more powerful than the actual transgender people. Because I felt like I couldn't really relate to my mum, what she was going through. So, yeah, that's going to be powerful, I think. That's going to be cool. I got another thing as well. I wondered if you was thinking about, like, physical things in the future, maybe, like, events and stuff like that. I don't know, because I feel like you could go anywhere with this.
Yeah. It's a good thing, because what we're trying to do is build an app for our community. And, myself and I have two other co-founders, Elizabeth and Taylor, and we all have this vision, right? And that's kind of where Trace is at now. The Trace is at the vision that we kind of made, the three of us thinking about our experiences. I'm trans, Taylor's trans, Elizabeth is a cis ally, right? So like, how can we mush all this together? What can it look like? And now that we actually have the app out there, right, now we're getting feedback. And we're hearing from trans folks like yourself who are like, I want this, and wouldn't this be cool? And then we take all of that information, and then I do interviews with different users. I chat with people like you to just hear some of the thoughts and the things that people are craving. And then we go back to the drawing board and we recreate Trace. Trace is constantly being recreated. I would say every 2 to 3 months, we are shifting where we're going with Trace, because this is a community app and we want the community to tell us what they want, right? And so I think that right now it's like, people ask me like, oh, what do you think is going to happen in 5 years? And it's like, I have some thoughts, I have some big visions and goals, but in the end, I'm not attached to any of it, because the community is going to be the one who tells me what they want. And I think that's that's one of the big differences we're offering outside of all of the other social platforms, is that Trace isn't going to completely replace your Facebook or your Instagram. That's not the goal, right? You're going to want to connect to other people outside of our community, people that, you don't need just one, right? We all have a few different ways to connect to people in these different outlets, right? But at the end, we're a place that's listening to you. If you send us a message, we are going to get back to you, right? Like if you report something, we're going to take direct action right away, right? And that's some of the beauty of being small right now, is that we're not some big Facebook meta universe. Right now we're literally just 3 people who are trying to build something, not just to give to our community, but to actually, we planted the seed and we want the community to help us water it and see what that's going to grow into being,
How beautiful is that? Seeing it like a tree.
Yeah, there you go, the tree. Oh yeah, way to bring the metaphor back.
Oh. Can I just ask about their logo as well? Because I love that logo, especially the way you changed the colours in the. Did you help design that, or?
Yeah, so I have to give the props to Elizabeth. She's our UX designer and our CDO, so she does all the designing. What we were trying to do was think of, first we came up with the name, right? Because we wanted to do something that encapsulated a tracking app and a community app, right? And so we got the name Trace, and then it was like, okay, what's the logo going to be? And she just did a triangle with the A in Trace, and I was like, I think that's cool, like it's different. And then we have the colors flashing because it's just kind of fun and unique and quirky. And I think as part of the queer, gay, lesbian, right, like the LGBT, the triangle has some history, right, for us, right, some negative history, and then some reclamation, and bringing it back into a positive history in the early 90s. So that wasn't quite intentional in that, but it was like, oh, well, cool, there's kind of this unconscious direct link to our community,
Like a synchronicity.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I was going to actually, I've got a couple little random questions. Yeah.
Sorry.
I've got a couple of random little questions.
Okay.
But I just wondered if, like I said, I got so many questions about all of this. I wondered if there's anything else you wanted to say about the Trace app.
I think overall, you've allowed a lot of space for me to say a lot of things, and the app is for our community. So if you're in our community, and when I say for, I mean you are a trans and non-binary person, or you're an ally, it doesn't quite matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're never going to medically transition or you already did 10 years ago. There is a community that's building there, and we are welcoming more and more people. And so I think, if you're somebody who likes to build community, if you're somebody who does have something to track or not, there's a lot of benefits to being a part of the Trace app. I mean, I think that as we grow and expand, there's going to be more and more moments where people are like, I can't not be on this. You know what I mean? I got to be on this. So that's the goal.
Cool. Oh, that's nice. So I was going to say, I got one little random question. Is it right?
Okay, yeah. Do you want to do a spitfire? Okay, cool. Great.
I just wondered if you had any paranormal experiences or anything. Because part of my podcast is about spiritual things and stuff. Mm-hmm. I just wondered if you'd had any.
Yeah. So you said paranormal experiences. So, I personally haven't had any paranormal experiences. My wife does energy work, and she's big into astrology. And so I know a bunch of people who've had some, I'll use paranormal. I know a lot of people think of aliens, but thinking more about spirits and ghosts and those type of things. I always I think also sometimes it's we're so taught to be skeptical that even I think if I had one, it'd be hard to recognize. you know, because I would be like, oh, that was just like that wasn't what I thought it was. You know what I mean? But I have not. I grew up. My dad is pretty into UFOs and aliens, and I don't think he had any experiences, but I grew up watching a lot of late night alien stuff at a very young age, which you know, was a little scary being super young, but has opened my eyes to a lot of different experiences. That's for sure.
Cool. Well, equally like that as well. This is a bit of a deep one. But what do you think happens when we die?
What do I think happens when I die? I think I've had many thoughts over the years, right? Like, I think I've had, like, like, I was raised Catholic, so it's like, you go to heaven. And then I was like, you just die. Like, you're just like a thing, and you just go into nothing. And then I've had some thoughts about, like, maybe you do have, like, another life, right? Like, maybe you're, like, born again, so to speak, right? Into either another creature, like reincarnated into a creature, or just another person. But I don't really know. I think that's one of the reasons death is pretty scary to me. It's because I don't have any solid knowing or, like, belief. I think right now, I think whatever you think happens. So if you think you die and you get, what is it, like 17 virgins, that's what's happening. If you think you die like an ant and nothing happens, then that's what happens too, you know? That's what I would say.
It's all in the mind.
Yeah, exactly. So what you think is going to happen is probably what's going to happen.
So if you could choose to come back as another human, do you think you would choose to be transgender?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. I mean, maybe, I think I would say no, but I think I would say no because in my moment right now, I only know what it is to be transgender. And I think as a trans person, or I'll speak for myself, I think I've spent a lot of time wondering what it would be like to not be trans. And I almost would love to go to live as a cis person, but with the memory of being trans, and see if there's really as much of a difference as, like, we conjure up in our heads. Like, we think there's such a huge difference, and oh my gosh, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it is really different, or maybe it's, like, kind of very similar with, you know?
Well, I'm reading this book, and there's a quote in it, and it says, man and women. The book's called The Art of Loving by Eric Fromm. And it says, man and woman finds union within himself, only in the union of his female and male polarity. And it talks about how everybody has got male and female inside themselves. So it's like all about balancing both sides like that. And I've wondered sometimes whether, like, transgender is actually, you're super aware of, like, both the sides, whereas I don't know. No, I love that. That is interesting. Yeah.
It's cool to explore, you know what I mean? It's cool to just, like, ask questions, because then no one really knows. That's right. No one really actually knows. And so, I think you have, like, allowing some space to ask questions can help, I think, us just identify what we personally truly believe, without just following a pack of, you know what I mean? Like what your friends think or what your parents think, Sometimes just listening to the other side, quote unquote, can be eye-opening,
I've had this funny thought as well I felt like my life would be easier if I'd been born female. But I've wondered if I was born female, would I have spent my whole life wanting to be like Kevin, like my male self? And then it would have been quite funny, Like,
yeah.
Because you don't know, do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you would like to say?
No, I mean, I just want to thank you, Sophie, for having me on and, for using your voice. I think it's really powerful that, people have platforms where they can really share parts of themselves and, bring other people on to have conversations with. And I appreciate you so much. Would love to see you on the Trace app. You should ally request me. Let's be friends on there. And yeah, I really appreciate you, and I thanks so much for having me.
Oh no, thank you so much. Really love you so much. When does the Trace app launch officially?
Yeah, so I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but our goal right now is going to be towards the end of June. That's the goal. It's going to be that kind of, so World Pride Week is the very last week of June into the first few days of July. So we're hoping to kind of have it out then. That would be the big hope and goal. If anybody listening knows anything about like tech stuff, or if sometimes the goals don't get hit. You think you're going to be done and then it doesn't quite happen, but fingers crossed, we're really aiming for the end of June. But even if people want to get on now and they want to begin beta testing, then they can just go to thetrace.app/download-trace, and you can become a beta tester. There's not too much of a difference, except the experience is slightly different because we're asking for feedback and there's some other slightly different things. But overall, you get to experience the app before everyone else does, which is kind of cool.
Super special.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to put like a little intro and outro to the podcast, and I'll put all your links and everything.
Great.
And I'll put them all in the show notes and everything.
Awesome.
Because your personal website as well is beautiful. I love the way you designed that as well. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
You just got a really cool style, I think. It's cool.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Not much to say. I mean, I don't have much on my walls in the back end, but I promise there's other cool things in here.
I noticed I saw some guitars in some of your other videos.
Yep, yeah. I have a guitar, yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Cool. Well, thank you, Aydian. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sophie. I appreciate you.
You can find out more about the Trace app on their official website, which is thetrace.app. You can also find them on Instagram and Twitter, instagram.com/thetrace.app and twitter.com/thetraceapp. And you can also find them on Facebook at facebook.com/thetraceapp. And you can find Aydian's personal website at aydiandowling.com. And you can find him on instagram.com/alliancefear, and also on YouTube at Aydian Dowling. And I'll put links and everything in the show notes and the descriptions if you want to go and have a look. Doing. So lilDENNiS has said it's game over, sunshine. But I wish it wasn't, because I had so much fun with that. I was very nervous because it's the first time I've ever done something like this. But I find it so beautiful that the first sort of proper... Well, this was for me facing a fear. And I just love the fact that it was Aydian Dowling who helped me overcome this. Because one of the things he's doing is he's trying to help the trans community. Like in his little bio it says, hopes to make trans folks feel safe, to not just share their transition, but to also celebrate their journeys. And the transition is not just about yourself, it's about like everything you're doing. Yeah. So this podcast is sort of part of my transition. And interviewing guests as well is part of the transition. And the thing with transitions is it's all about fear. Facing fears really. That's what I love about Aydian's his username on Instagram and Twitter, on Instagram and YouTube is Aydians Fear. I love that because it is like, that sounds quite powerful. Like a lion is super powerful, and it's all about fear, facing fear, because lions are fearless. And that's what one of the things I got from Aydian was how sort of fearless he is. And I had so many questions, and as we were talking, so many more questions come up, like the fact that his wife is into energy healing and stuff like that, energy work. I could have gone off onto. I wanted to go off and ask questions about that. I wanted to know about Aydian, how he faces and overcomes fears, stuff like that. So there was so much to talk about, but I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there was something about it which is quite funny, and I had a little beautiful experience from it. So after we did the interview, I went and checked the video, and the video, we had a few technical issues at the start, and what happened was the video didn't actually record the audio. Now, when I saw that, I thought, oh no. The first thought was, I've just done this, I've just like faced my biggest fear one of my biggest fears ever. I've done it, and I've not got the audio, so I felt a little bit, but fortunately I had a backup audio. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but on the interview, the audio isn't the best quality, unfortunately, but I'm just so grateful that I got something, because I had to use a backup audio, which is quite weird. Now, what's cool about this is, I spoke to Dan from the Ascend podcast, and I explained what happened, and what he said this interview was not about. It wasn't about recording it. It was about basically stepping into your fear, and he said this interview was not about recording it. It was about you and Aydian, like the connection between you and Aydian. So I got a lot of. I thought that was a really beautiful thing to say, because it's almost like even if you had lost the recording, it doesn't take away from the experience that I had, and hopefully Aydian had as well. But also, it's almost like, because what Dan said was, you did it for your soul. You did it because your soul wanted to do this. Like, the fear of interviewing a guest is something, it's like a desire that's been inside of me. So recording it was just like a Brucey bonus, as they say. But so even in things that went wrong, beautiful things come out of it. And even this interview, the way it came about, it was a synchronicity as well. Because I feel what happened was Aydian actually approached me to do the interview. Now, the thing is, I've been wanting to do an interview with guests for like over 2 years. And I was waiting for me to make the move. And I think I would have been waiting forever, because the fear of approaching somebody was so strong. I feel like I would never have actually broke through that. So Aydian actually approached me, which it forced me to say yes, because it's almost like the universe was saying, you got to put your money where your mouth is. I'm giving you an opportunity here to do the thing you said you want to do. Prove to me that you actually want to do it. So for me, it felt like Aydian and the universe were sort of coming together to create this moment. So the whole experience for me has been very powerful. It's been scary but amazing. So like sort of balancing these two opposites. It's beautiful. And it actually goes into this week's inspirational quote, which comes from Aydian Dowling. Now this quote is so cool, and it actually ties in with this interview in a strange way. So the full quote is, "My confidence is my success." Success is, I need a drink actually, because the thing is, I like to have a little Drinky Poos. Now this quote, listen to this, look. "My confidence is my success. Success is any time you have a moment of feeling happy. Success is this interview. Success is any kind of barrier you break down in your life." Now this is a quote that Aydian said, but the bit where he said, "Success is this interview," that is it for me. It goes into that thing about what Dan said. The recording is not the success. The success was saying yes to doing it. So the actual interview itself was what it was about. And I even thought to myself, if it hadn't have worked out, the fact I said yes, that is even like the moment I said yes, that was good enough in a strange way. But this last bit where Aydians used the word barrier, I love that, because the word barrier, it's sort of, for me, I see little things and big things. So it's almost like success is any kind of barrier you break down in your life. So that could be a little tiny thing. It could be as simple as making your bed in the morning. Like, let's say you spent your whole life not making your bed. Like, just getting over that barrier of making your bed, that could actually trigger a load of things, like a snowball effect. Because with my transition, the way I did it, there was no way it felt impossible. So what I did was I broke it down into these little baby things. I called them baby steps. And I basically used it as like an experiment. So one of them, the first one was going outside with makeup, nail polish on my fingers as Kevin. So I was still presenting as Kevin with like a beard and everything, but I actually had painted nails. Now looking back now, that was easy. But at the time, it felt like the most terrifying thing ever. But what happened was, as I did that, it allowed me to do the next thing. So it's almost like each little barrier, it's like a domino effect. But I love it because the barrier can also be a big, massive thing as well. Like doing this interview was a big barrier. But it's almost as if the little things that you do before it help you do the bigger thing. So it is very much, to me, like a domino effect. You hit all you got to do is, like, the first thing you overcome, it gives you such a boost and confidence that it allows you to, and all of a sudden the whole lot comes crumbling down. So this week's inspirational quote goes to Aydian Dowling, and I want to say thank you so much, Aydian. I don't think he will ever know how much he's helped me with this, because and the other thing is, once you've done something, to know you can do it means you can do it again. So I feel a bit like the world is my oyster. So Aydian has really helped me a lot, and I wish him all the best in the future with the Trace app. And like I said, thank you so much for doing the interview. lilDENNiS is here, but the thing is, lilDENNiS had a little question as well for Aydian, but lilDENNiS was a bit shy, so he didn't appear on the interview. But he was alongside me. He wanted to come on, but his question was going to be: does Aydian feel that animals are aware of their gender? And does he think that animals could actually be transgender? See, I'd love to know what Aydian thought of that, but because my thinking is that animals do not even consider their gender. I don't think they're even aware of it. I think they just are. So I feel like gender is actually a human thing that we've created. But this week's inspirational quote goes to Aydian Dowling. Success is any kind of barrier you break down in your life. Aydian Dowling.
I can hear you. The question is, can you hear me?
Yes.